And we are live. This is DarnaldJr, your favorite insurance agent, and this is Finland Live. This is the show where we talk about personal finances and we get educated on how money works because they didn't teach us that growing up. And so that's the purpose of this show. And today we have a really important and relevant topic because there's a looming recession. Some experts say it's about 50% chance that the United States is about to go into recession. And honestly, it's long overdue. This is just the natural cycle of how the economy works. You have times of boom and then you have times of recession, and it's just a healthy part of the economy. So, but the United States, we went through a minor recession for like 2 quarters last year, but we didn't have the correction that we needed to help bring things down and cool the economy off a little bit. And so, with everything that's happening in the world, inflation is at an all-time high. It's coming down a little bit, but it's still higher than average. Also, as you know, when you go to the pump, when you go to the grocery store, it's a lot higher than it used to be at this time last year, at least. And so there's going to be a need for a recession. So recession, a lot of times people get scared of it, but it can be a good thing. And the people that are well off coming out of recession are the ones that are prepared or are the ones that are educated. So that's what we're talking about today. It's how to get prepared to recession proof your finances. Because if it doesn't happen this year, it's going to happen sometime. So let's go ahead and get lit. So, welcome back. Today we have a very important topic. So, super excited that you're tuning in. If you're watching live, go ahead and chat, put hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, put hashtag replay. And we're going to keep this nice, short, simple, and that way you could keep it applicable, something you could take and apply to your finances today to help you go through a looming recession. So, my point number one is to build an emergency fund. And these are points that, even if there isn't a recession, these are good things to do. So build an emergency fund. And my encouragement for you is to save up at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So what I mean by that is take the total of how much you're paying on a monthly basis and then calculate that out 3 times or even 6 times and have that in savings. And so that's a savings that you don't want to touch. I know a lot of times, especially for me, like your checking and your savings accounts are tied together. And it's easy once you see your checking account get a little bit low to go transfer, transfer. But for your emergency savings, you want to have it in an account where it's not easy to transfer over. And you want to use it specifically for emergencies. Because the reality is, what tends to happen in recessions is right now the unemployment rate is actually really low. It's about 3% here in America. And what tends to happen in recessions is that unemployment rate tends to increase. And we're already starting to see signs of this, especially in the tech industry. Facebook and Google are already starting to lay off people. I have a friend out of Arizona. She already got laid off from her job. And what's predicted to happen too is there's going to be a credit crunch because the interest rates are getting so much higher. Banks are getting tighter on loaning out money to businesses. And when that happens, businesses tend not to invest into their business as much because they don't have access to that capital. And so, what they tend to do also is they tend to trim the fat in their company. So, they're going to lay off people that aren't productive. So you have to be the valuable member in your team. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So definitely stay tuned for point number 5, because that's exactly what we're talking about. So, but the point is, since there's going to be a credit crunch, they're going to start to lay off people just to be able to save expenses. And if you're one of those that is laid off, the people that are blindsided in a recession are the ones that don't have that buffer, that don't have that emergency fund to be able to go out and find a new job or start a new career or even start their own business. Even though it sounds horrible that a lot of people get laid off, there's actually more millionaires that are made in a recession if you're prepared. So if you have that savings, if you have that cash set aside, there's going to be a lot of great deals that happen in a recession, and that's what tends to happen. So that's point number 1. So, point number two when it comes to recession proofing your finances is to pay down your debt. Pay down your debt. Because when it comes to, uh, you want to reduce as many expenses as possible, and your debt is the biggest thing. Because anytime you have any type of financial debt, especially if there's an interest rate tied to it, you're paying over and above the value of whatever you bought, like a house or a car, or if you bought a TV on credit card or whatnot, especially credit card debt. You want to focus on paying down that high interest credit card debt. Because I challenge you, I encourage you to actually go through all your credit cards and look how much you're paying in interest on each of the credit cards and multiply that out over a course of a year and see how much over and above the actual principal that you're paying towards your credit card. You're going to be blown away about the extra money that you're just giving MasterCard and Visa and American Express that could be in your bank account. So there's a couple ways and different strategies people utilize to pay down their debt. One is called the snowball method. The snowball method is the one I personally like because it gives you that immediate gratification. And how that works is you make a list of all the debts that you owe, and then you find the one that has the least that you owe on it. So say you have a credit card that you only owe $250 on, and you might have a personal loan that's 1,000. And you might have another loan for like a student loan for like 20,000. So the how you do a snowball debt is you actually pay off the lowest one first, the one that has the smallest dollar amount. And when you pay off that debt, you don't want to be like, oh, I have some extra money in my bank account. No, you take the payments that you use to pay off that low, and then you use those payments to pay off the next highest debt. And so with that, you're going to be putting a lot more money towards that debt. And guess what? That debt is going to get paid down faster now, and it's going to create this snowball effect. And then once you pay off that debt, then you take both of those payments from the first two debts you just paid off and you put it towards the third debt, and so on and so forth. So it creates this snowball effect where you just start paying down your debt faster, and it gives you a more immediate gratification because you see that you're paying down your debts and you're celebrating your financial freedom. So that's one strategy to pay down the debt. The next strategy is called the avalanche strategy. And what the avalanche is, it's really similar but different than the snowball debt in the way that you're not looking at which one has the lowest balance, but you're actually looking at the interest rates. And so what you want to do is, once again, you want to make a list of your debts, but you want to find out exactly how much interest rate you're paying on each of those debts. And you want to pay off the one that has the highest interest rate first, because the one that has the highest interest rate, guess what? That's just extra money out of your pocket that's going bye-bye to the wind. And so, like, for instance, credit card debt tend to have a higher interest rate. If you have a payday loan or if you have a title loan, those tend to have really, really high interest rates. And so those are the ones you want to focus on paying off first. And then car loans tend to have an okay interest rate. And then obviously mortgages tend to have a lower interest rate. Obviously, interest rates are higher than they were even 2 years ago on mortgages, but relatively speaking, compared to other debts, it's still relatively low. So that's the last one you want to pay off. And so you make a list in order of the interest rates on your debt, and you pay off the one that has the highest interest rates. And over the long run, that's actually the one that will keep money in your bank account um, further because you're not paying as much in interest over the long run. So that's huge, especially if you're preparing for a recession, because the more debt you pay off, the more you can keep in your bank account, the more interest rate isn't being seeped out your bank account, which is great. So that's point number two, is pay down your debt. The third way to recession proof your finance is to diversify your investments. And this is important whether we're in a recession or not, because there's different asset classes. So you have your hard assets like gold and silver. Cryptocurrency is now an asset class. You have real estate investments. You have 401ks. You have stocks. So there's a whole bunch of different assets. that you can invest in. And the key here is to be consistent and invest in these asset classes, even in the middle of recession. So imagine if you went to Target and there's like everything's 30% off. How excited would you be that you get a 30% discount? So even if something like a stock goes down in a recession, just view it as like a sell. Everything's for sale. And the key is to be consistent, set a specific dollar amount or specific percentage of your income and invest in that asset class even throughout a recession. Because what tends to happen is once you get out the recession, more times than not, those asset classes tend to be higher than they were even before the recession. And so if you bought it at a lower price, then it's going to be a higher value. Like for instance, Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been down around 20,000 for most of last year and even before that. And guess what? Bitcoin just broke $30,000 this week. So if you would have bought Bitcoin consistently over the past couple of years, you would have increased your money by 50%. And that's just in 3 months. So the people that are consistently investing in their assets and diversifying their portfolio, they can see those gains because they're consistently invested in it. So it's super, super important to put in different assets. And definitely watch the show where we talked about the importance of gold right now. Gold might be a very safe asset. Once again, I'm not a financial planner. Definitely talk with a professional planner. These are just ideas I have. You could take them or leave them. And so, but talk to somebody specifically that knows your specific situation. Everybody has different risk tolerances. Some people are very risk averse, like they want to be conservative with their money, and some people like to do risky investments. They might lose a lot, but they might gain a lot. So you have to sit down with somebody that knows your specific situation and could advise you specifically. So I highly encourage you to sit down with a financial planner. So that's the third thing. So the fourth thing to recession proof your finances is to cut your expenses. And this is like a no-brainer. So this is one of the harder ones I find that people struggle with because you're used to a certain lifestyle. You're used to going out to eat. You're used to buying certain things. And especially even the basic things right now are a little bit higher. So that's really hard to cut expenses when you go to the store and milk and eggs cost more than they did a year ago. So you got to be very strategic on planning ahead. Know exactly how many meals you're going to have throughout the week. And if you know exactly how many meals, meal prep, know exactly ahead of time what you're wanting to eat. And that way you could make a budget. And once you make a budget on the groceries you buy, you stick to it. One of the things that has personally worked for my wife and I is when historically we used to go to the grocery store to buy our food, but now we actually shop online. So we go to HEB online and we order pickup where they just put it in our trunk and we just pick it up and leave. And we've actually saved so much money just by ordering online because we know exactly what our budget is. Because what tends to happen, at least for us, when we go into the store, the grocery store, we'll be like, hey, I like that. I like that. I like that. You start adding a lot more things to the grocery cart than what was on the grocery list because of just temptation of things looking good. Like for me personally, I love dairy-free ice cream. So when I pass by that dairy-free ice cream, I'm like, the temptation is real. And yeah, I actually added that this past time when I went to the grocery store. So, but if you order online, this prevents that because you know exactly what your budget is and you know how to cut your expenses in that regards. So that's the fourth way how you recession proof your finance. And the last thing I have for you as far as recession proofing your finances is upgrading your skills. Upgrading your skills. And this could pay dividends in multiple ways. If we truly go through a recession and companies start to cut back on their employees, the people that they're going to retain are the ones that are most valuable to the company. So the best skills to have are the ones that are very valuable to your specific employer. So if you're in one department, start learning other departments, start learning other aspects of your company. And that way, when they're like, should we cut person A or person B, they decide on person B because they're like, well, person A could do 5 things and person B could only do 3 things. And so if you upgrade your skills, then it's going to be really hard for them to let you go because, believe it or not, the company's going to survive through the recession more times than not, and they're going to retain people. So if you upgrade your skills, be that person that they're going to retain. In addition to that, find a skill set that's outside your current profession. Like find where you could be a photographer, or you could rent out your house on Airbnb, or you could rent out your car on Turo to be able to make more money. And you upgrade your skills as far as marketing your Airbnb, marketing your Turo, and that way you could bring in more cash to your household. So even if something does happen to your specific career, then you have a safety net to fall back on. And this is a great time to maybe get educated, find some courses online in a different career path. And that way, if something does happen to your specific career, and I did a show about this before too, find a career that artificial intelligence can't take over. Because, especially in a recession, if companies are going to start to find ways to cut expenses, usually their personnel expense is one of their highest expenses. And if they know that artificial intelligence could replace that specific person, then they're going to do it. So find a job that artificial intelligence cannot take over. So it's so important to upgrade your skills in a looming recession, because companies are going to start cutting back, and don't be the person that they cut back. And if they do cut back, you'll have a skill set to fall back on. So these are the 5 things I have for you on how to recession proof your finance. So build an emergency fund, pay down your debt, diversify your investments, cut your expenses, and upgrade your skills. And if you do these 5 things, this will help prep you in case of a looming recession. So if you got any value out of today, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this with your loved ones. If you have friends and family that you love and know that they're not prepared, maybe this is the show that will push them over the edge to actually take action and do something. And that's ultimately where the rubber meets the road. It's great to hear good information, but it's one thing to hear it, it's another thing to apply it. And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's what wisdom is. And so let's be wise with our finances. That's the purpose of this show, is to help educate you. What you do with that knowledge is ultimately up to you, but that's where the wisdom comes in, is the application of the knowledge. And so that's why I do this show, is because they didn't teach this in college. They didn't teach this in high school. They didn't teach this in middle school. And so typically I bring on guests where we talk about various topics like this one, and we educate you on how money works. And that way you can be wise with your finances. That way you could go to that next level in your personal finances. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We have a guest lined up for next week. Super excited. And we have this every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Once again, subscribe to the YouTube station if you haven't. Smash that like button. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and for getting lit.